Hello, my name is Delilah Cordovah, visibility creator here at Omnipresence Studios. We expose the world to our interviewees' unique products, services, and books, and we also help in their journey to go from undiscoverable to visible in a digital world. I am currently on a mission to conduct 100 author interviews, and we're talking about all things books, from publishing to new authors, and don't forget, marketing. I would like to welcome you to our show, Marketing and Coffee, where authors come to get inspired and experience. Hey authors, you finished your manuscript. What do you do next? If you would like to learn more about being featured on my show, go to marketingandcoffee.com. And without further ado, meet our next awesome author. It's Delilah Cordova here again for another awesome author interview. And today I have with me Leah Lindeman, and we are going to be talking about her book, Redeemed from the Ashes. And as you all know, as you can see right now, Leah Lindeman is another feisty Latina. She's a lover of classic literature, and she's a Victorian era fanatic and a history buff. So she also graduated with honors from the Institute of Children's Literature, and she's born and raised in Montreal, another Canadian. So we are going to be talking about her and her awesome book and her crazy awesome author life. And then, but before we get started, Leah, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell them about your book.
Okay, hey everybody. So I'm Leah, and I wrote my first novel, Redeemed here. And I got this novel idea from a camping trip that my family went on. My dad read in the Montreal Gazette about this thing that happened 100 years ago, or now 101 years ago, so 1917, on the home front of World War I, where two ships collided in the harbor of Halifax and completely leveled the city. And at the time I was writing poetry, I was also in the course for the Institute of Children's Literature. Decided I needed to tell this story. So I started coming up with an idea, and this baby was born. So the story of Redeemed from the Ashes is about Evelyn Richardson, who, after her husband comes back from the war front of World War I, she loses him to the Halifax Explosion of 1917. Although she searches for him, there's no trace of his existence to be found. And as his existence is doubted every day, day by day, she falls for another man who might be the hope of her future or the destruction of everything she holds dear in the present. And that's what the book is about. I can't say too much more because then I'm going to spoil it, but basically that's what it's about.
That's good. That's good. That's already really interesting. It's like I believe I said it earlier. It's like a Titanic but the whole city gets taken out.
Exactly, except it's not on the ocean, it's on land.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, tell us more about yeah, I know you had your book a minute there. Can you bring it back again and tell us about your book
Sure.
cover? Yeah. How did you come up with that book cover? Is that you?
No, it's not. Everybody keeps thinking it's me, but it's not me. My picture is in the back right here. It's kind of small though. But yeah, no, the cover, it's funny. I knew exactly what I wanted, and part of me going self-publishing was because I wanted total creative control over everything, including the cover.
Mhm.
And I knew that that's the pose I wanted. If you look at the cover, she's kind of got ashes, like mud ashes over her face, and that's just to show that what she went through, losing her husband, going through such a traumatic experience, and then her learning to move on. Because a lot of the book is after the explosion, so the recovery
Yeah.
process of the city and of herself. So, actually, it's a little creepy. I looked at all my Facebook friends and decided which one was going to be on them. And a lot of my Facebook friends are just acquaintances, but I knew her from another friend, and so I just came up to her one day and I said, "Hey, do you want to be on my book cover?" And she's like, "Sure." So, anyways, we got that down. I had another good friend; she was the photographer. Kind of went somewhere local and just shot that, and exactly what I was picturing, and I got it. So I was super happy about that.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's a friend of yours. So you had a model.
Yeah, well, at the time she was more of an acquaintance, but we've become better friends over time. So it was really neat to have that bring us
Nice.
together.
That's cool. I don't think I've had somebody stage their book cover just yet or have a whole photography session. Well, wait, no, one author has before, and that was Travion's, but she was the model on the cover.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, so that's cool. Um, so I know you mentioned that I want to hear a little bit more about the backstory of how the book came to be and how you guys were at I believe you said you were somewhere and you guys go ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'll go into more detail of that. So we went camping. My dad told me about the story, and I was thinking, wow, like it's so big. How come I've never heard of this before? Like, how come there hasn't been a book or a movie or something, and people don't know about this? And I kind of put it away. I knew about it, but it just wouldn't leave me alone, that particular story. And so then, as I said, when I had to do my course, the last assignment was a nonfiction article of the first three chapters of a book. And the main character and her husband and losing her husband, just kind of that what if that would happen and what would she have to go through after that happens, just stayed with me. And the story started forming and it just wouldn't leave me alone. So when that assignment came up, I said, well, this is my chance to write the first three chapters and see if it's any good. And at the time of the course, I was being followed by an editor. They give you an editor to kind of look over your stuff. And she did, and she said, it's really good. Go for it. So I started writing it. I wrote maybe the first four chapters, and then I got married and I had my first child. So I kind of stopped for a little bit. And then at chapter four, I really had to do a lot of research because it deals a lot with the medical scene at the time, which was different from today. So I'd have to do a lot of research for that, which I did. And then probably a year later, I got back into writing it again. So this whole process took 5 years to write, kind
Wow.
of on and off, going through research, looking to see what I needed. And then I took a year off to learn about marketing because this was at this point, the book was pretty much done. And I really wasn't too sure if I wanted to be traditionally published or self-published. I think every author's dream is to be traditionally published, backed by a big name, and you get the works, you
Right.
get the exposure, you get the funding, you get help with your marketing. But then I was kind of really looking at it, and I was looking to see that traditional publishing, you have to do a lot of marketing on your own anyways. They expect you to do that. And so I was thinking,
Yep.
well, self-publishing just seems more of a pro to me because I get creative control over everything. and I have to market, so I'm gonna have to learn anyways. And yeah, it just seemed to be more appealing, so that's what I did. And I took a year off to do the marketing just to learn. I followed a bunch of social media gurus like Joan Stewart, the publicity hound, and just different people, just learning from them. And then after that, I just said, all right, it's going out, and we're gonna do this. So that's what happened.
Nice. So how did that go, your launch?
Yeah, no, it was great. I did a kind of a personal launch party, which was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of support there. And I've been able to get into like bookstores, chapters. Up here it's chapters. I think you guys have Barnes and Noble down there or other stores. But yeah, up here it's chapters. So I've been in two in Ottawa, two in Montreal, one in Cornwall. So I've been in about five or six. Oh, and then in Halifax too. So I actually did do a book tour in Halifax. I went there, right where the scene of the book is. That was pretty amazing. So yeah, I got into bookstores, and it's been good reviews so far. I'm very happy with the acceptance of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So my question is for other authors out there, can you tell them a little bit about the process of getting your book into bookstores? Just to spread
Yeah,
a little
sure.
knowledge here.
It's actually really simple. Well, first off, I would say make sure your book looks professional. Because if you want your book to be in a bookstore, it's got to look like the other books there, and it's got to compete with the other books there. But once that's all done, all you do basically is you call them up and you say, hey, I'm a local author, or I'm an author. I'd like to do a book signing and have my books on consignment at your store. Would that be okay? I've never had a no. So they're usually very gracious. It's just you have to work up the courage to give them a call. But once you do, yeah, you usually start off with the book signing, and depending on how well your book signing goes, then you can leave copies there on consignment. And usually regular bookstores will take 40 to 45% of the sales. So you do have to factor that in if you want your books in bookstores, but that's the going rate.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned that you did some research as far as the medical portion goes. But what other kind of research did you do? And how long did it
So
take you to get that together as far as the research portion of your book?
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so I had to research the medicine, just the times too. I kind of was very already aware of what kind of clothing they wore back then, what their lifestyle was back then. But other things that I had to research, like a lot of my scenes took place or were going to take place in the public gardens, which is a large garden area in Halifax in the middle of the city. And originally when I wrote it, they were there, but then I actually contacted the people kind of who look over the gardens right now, and I said, in my book, I have a lot of scenes here during the winter. Was it even open during the winter back in 1917? And they actually looked for me and they said, no, it wasn't. So it's kind of, you have to go to the source a lot of the times if you can, and they're very, very helpful. They'll look into it for you and they'll get back to you on that. So that was good. And then I just changed spots of where a lot of those scenes were going to be, and it worked out. So yeah, it's just really immersing yourself into the times, into the language. Yeah, for me, the medical scene was a big deal in this book, but depending on what kind of thing you're focusing on in your history, you really want to look into that. Also, I had to find maps of 1917 Halifax, what it looked like, what the streets looked like. So I did most of my research on the internet, but I also borrowed a bunch of books from the library as well, from other people. I also read another classic novel by John, oh dear. Anyways, I can't remember, but it's called Barometer Rising, and that's actually a Canadian classic that was done on the Halifax Explosion. However, it was only the day before, the day of, and the day after. So I read his book to get kind of a good feel of what it was like back then too. So yeah, that's a lot of the research that I did.
Nice, nice, nice. So what does with you doing so much work and getting everything together and putting together this awesome book, took you 5 years to do it, right? What
Yeah.
does literary success look like to you at this point?
To me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. In this case, I would say it is relative to what you want, how you view success. For me, I've sold books. I've been in a bunch of bookstores, have a following online. It's not huge, but it's the start. I mean, it's the first book, so you can't expect, I mean, unless it's pure luck that you do, but you can't expect to be an explosive new author on the scene and you're getting tons of money from your books. It just usually doesn't happen. And I knew that going into. So the response that I've gotten from my first book, I'm super happy with. I actually have a second book coming out this September.
Nice.
So, I think, I probably by my fourth or fifth book, I'll definitely be a bigger name. I mean, the dream is to become a household name in Canada. That's what I'm really looking to be. And of course, which author doesn't want their books being turned into movies? Like, that's just something I would love to see too. But we'll see. And actually, kind of the marketing scheme behind all this, this is not just a one standalone novel, it's part of the Canadian Reminiscence series. So basically, the whole series is each book is set in a different province of Canada during a certain historical time period. And there's 13 provinces in Canada. So I've got 12 more books to write. Actually 11 because the second one's done. But so I have the first one in Halifax. My second book is going to be based in the Caribou Gold Rush in BC, in British Columbia, during the 1870s. And then from there on, just tackle each province one at a time. But I like to look for unique aspects of the province's history that not a lot of people know. So for the Halifax Explosion, there have been a few books written on the Halifax Explosion, nonfiction and fiction, but I really wanted to focus on the aftermath. So what does the recovery of the city look like? What would it look like for an individual? And not just cut it right after the explosion happens, but how do they rebuild their lives again into kind of a new era during World War I, and after that, what were the effects sociologically? So yeah, that's the whole master grand plan is 13 books, and it's all in Canada.
Nice, So with the characters in our book, is any of them based off of real people you know?
That's such a great question. Okay, so the main character, a little bit of me, but not too much of me. A lot of it has to do with the medicine. So she becomes a volunteer at a hospital after she loses her husband. So that is definitely a lot of me. I am very fascinated with human anatomy and medicine and the whole medical field. So that's me. I have another character. She kind of resembles a little bit of a really good friend I have in real life. But a lot of the characters, actually a big part of the characters coming to life are what I envision them to be, how I create them, but also because I said I want my books turned into movies, I actually picked in my head the perfect actors or actresses to play, and then from their bodies of work in the past, I kind of incorporate that into what I've envisioned for my characters and my full wrap up of a character.
So what characters are those, or who are they?
So the main character, Evelyn Richardson, she's the main character. The husband is Carl Richardson, and then the man who she falls for is Doctor Gerald MacCrae. So for Evelyn Richardson, I picked Emmy Rossum. She played in The Phantom of the Opera. That was one of her more well-known movies. And then Carl Richardson, he's a British actor. But he actually was just in Ocean's 8 recently, Richard Armitage. And then for the Doctor, it's Gerard Butler. So picking these perfect people of who I think would be the characters, I kind of take from what they've done and I mesh it with what I want for my characters, and that's how my characters are born.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you kind of like, doing some law of attraction here and including them in your book and in your bubble, right?
Yeah, I know. Hope it. Who knows? But I don't know. Maybe by the time my book is made into a movie, they might be a little too old for the part. But that would literally be my perfect scene, or having those three. That would be amazing.
So, were there any historical figures written into your book?
Yes, I just had one, and he was the captain of a ship. So the doctor is friends with this captain of the ship, and he invites Evelyn, the main character, on board to have a dinner with him and the captain. So I did do a little bit of research onto who is the captain of the ship at that time. That particular ship was in Halifax during the explosion and did suffer some damage, but it was kind of light damage, so they were able to repair it, and it was back into functioning mode several months later. So yeah, I did look into him a little bit, but he's a very, very minor character. There's only one scene that he's in, and the rest are fictional characters.
Okay, cool. Cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool. So how long, I know you said 5 years, but how long a day, I mean, how many hours per day were you putting into making the book?
Good question. So I actually have, I said that I got married, I had a child. I actually have 4 kids now. So it kind of limits.
Within a 5 year time span?
No, okay, the 4th kid I only had last year. So I had 3 kids in 5 years. But the 4th one just came last year. So yeah, the 3 kids, I actually have a mandatory quiet time in the house where they can either nap or they can quietly play, and that's my time to write. So I usually get in like an hour, 2 hours, 2 hours max. Definitely in the beginning, it was more scattered. Like I'd maybe write half an hour here, 10 minutes here, an hour here. It just depended. But now I'm really trying to stick to a schedule where every day I get to write or I get to edit something. And for people who are starting out and they're like, oh, I want to write a book, but I don't know how much time I have to dedicate to it during the day, I would just suggest write whenever you can, even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's 45 minutes, whatever time you can give it, until you're able to incorporate a sense of scheduling with being able to schedule a time in to write. But if that's something you really, really want to do, you're going to make time to write. I mean, with 3 kids, I think I have the easiest excuse of, oh, I don't have time to write, I can't do it. But because I love it so much and it's my creative outlet, I make the time for it. So make the time for what you do.
Right. So, what was the hardest thing to write in your book?
Uh, um, it's not so much writing the hardest thing. For me, I mean, there's times when you're writing, right, and it just flows so well, and you keep writing and you're writing, and then you have to stop. And then you just don't know what happens next because what I do is I know my beginning, I know my middle, and I know my ending, but I usually have no clue what's in the middle of it. So I'll get into these scenes where I'm like, oh, this is going great. And then I'm like, okay, well, what happens next? I don't know what happens next. So I'll stop there. And then the next day I'll come and I'm just sitting in front of my computer screen and nothing's coming. And I could be sitting there for 10, 15 minutes. And I feel like I need to know what I'm going to write before I start typing. But that's actually my worst enemy. I just need to start typing. So for me, a lot of times it's just overcoming that blank page on the screen and just start writing, even if it's garbage, because I'm going to come back to it later and just more just scenes where I just didn't know what was happening and then go from there.
Right. I had to be a little bit, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So, what's one thing? Well, I want to know, a little bit more about you as an author and about how, I know you said in the beginning, like a little bit about your path, but I want to know more about how you became a better writer along the way.
Good question. So a lot of my inspirations are the romantic Victorian novelists, so Charles Dickens, Jane Austen, and then a lot of the romantic poets of the 1800s. So I really started getting into that kind of literature, and they're one of my biggest inspirations. But me as an author, how did I learn? So I actually the first thing that I ever wrote was a poem. And I was on my trampoline just looking at the sky, and it all of a sudden words just started forming in my head. And I wrote it down quickly. And then every day I would go for walks, and something would come to my head. And I'd literally memorize the lines that were pouring into my head, and when I'd get back home from my walk, I'd write it down. And so my parents were seeing this kind of fervency in me to write, and they said, you know, you're actually very good at this. We should get you into a course. And so this course really helped me fine tune kind of what setting really is, dialogue. I used to not be that great at dialogue. My strongest suit is setting, um, just the descriptions that I'm able to use in setting. But then with this course, the dialogue really started coming in, and now I find it's actually very easy to do. So yeah, so that course was a really, really big help. And then after writing this, as I said, the story kind of came organically. And I had an editor take a look at the first two chapters. So one thing that she noticed from me was that I wrote a lot in passive tense. So there's passive tense and active tense. So I'll give you an example. In the sequel to this book, which is coming out July 13th, there's a line that I wrote in it, which is, even from the light of the sun did he hide, which is passive tense. Instead of saying he even hid from the light of the sun, which is active tense. So this editor really caught that I was using a lot of passive voice, which is okay, but just not in overabundance. And so that's one thing I really have to catch when I write, is writing in the passive tense, just making sure that that's active tense just keeps yours going a little more and captures their attention better. Yeah, so that's what I did. And then yeah, so the sequel to this book is coming out in about 2 weeks, and then I have my second book coming out. Now my second book, this is more of it's more of a drama, a little bit of suspense, definitely some romance in here. But with my second book, it's kind of more of a murder mystery, kind of gold treasure hunting. So even with that, when I was writing that, I got my husband to take a look at it, and he said, you know, it's got a very different feel to it, but I can still tell that it's you, it's your voice as an author, which is kind of what I was going for. So yeah, and I just find inspiration from life, from different people, from different phases that I'm in.
Nice.
And incorporate into my writing. Yeah.
Now, something just hit me a moment ago as I was reading your bio earlier. The Feisty Latina, and then Canadian, and then for some reason it just clicked. It's like, how did we get a Latina in Canada?
I know. Well, it's actually very interesting. I kind of call myself a mutt, or I'm a Heinz 57, because I've actually got a lot of different backgrounds. So my dad's from Bolivia. He came to Canada when he was 18. So my dad's fully Bolivian. And then I've got my mom. She's totally Canadian. You know, doesn't even speak French. She just speaks English. But she's got quite a bit on her side as well. She's Native American. She's got some Swedish. She's got some Irish. So I'm very much a mix of a lot of different things. So it's kind of, I know it doesn't seem normal that a Latina would write about Canada, but I'd probably say that I'm one of the fiercest Canadian patriots that are around. And it's just strange that I'm a Latina and I feel that way, but I just love Canada. It's just such a beautiful country, and the people that make it up are beautiful as well. So yeah, it's kind of a weird mix, but there it is.
I know you never hear anything bad about Canada or anything crazy happening in Canada.
Yeah, we're a pretty calm country. Yeah. But I've been to the States several times, and I love it there. And I've been to Florida, and I definitely see like a really big Latin community, and it's really cool to see, like, and hearing Spanish too all around, like that's different. You don't really hear it up here. It's more French. Like when you go into Quebec, which is the province that I'm from, and right now I'm Ontario, which is right next to Quebec. But Quebec is always French. That's all you hear is French. You might hear some English too, but.
So then, do you know any French?
I do. I learned French in school, so that's where I got my French from. And I do know some Spanish as well, although I had to take 2 years of high school to learn it because my dad never talked to me in Spanish growing up, so I had to learn it for myself. Because being a Latina and being Spanish, I think that's the nationality I hold to the most. So it's really important for me to be able to speak the language.
Awesome. I just
Yeah.
I wanted to clear that up because 2 plus 2 wasn't clicking. I'm like,
Yeah.
like Latina. So I want to hear a little bit about your family, and about how they support you as an author.
Yeah, no, that's super important. My husband, he's so I'm the Heinz 57. He's full Dutch. Really strange combination. But he knew that I really enjoyed writing, and he fully supports me 100% because I'm able to be at home with my kids and still do this. So family life is important to both of us, for me to be able to be home with the kids. But at the same time, for me to have this creative outlet and to have a professional side to my life is very important to me. And because it's important to me, and he knows it's important to him too. He loves me and he wants me to have that. So, yeah, he's super supportive. And my kids, as I said, they have their quiet time. So in that way, they're supporting me by just giving me that time to write, which is pretty amazing. And I don't think it's quite hit them yet that I'm an author. Like I've told my oldest daughter, she's 7 right now, that, I've written a book and I'm putting another book out. And she still doesn't quite get the whole novel and, going out to book signings and meeting people. But no, they're really great. And actually right now, while this interview is happening, my brother-in-law is looking after the kids in the house while I'm in my husband's office. 100 feet away from the house. So even the in-laws are super supportive and always ready to babysit the kids, and great.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's Deutsch.
Yeah, exactly. Although Deutsch, it would be when you say Deutsch, I don't know if it'd be Dutch, but usually it's German. That's the German way to
Is
say
it?
German.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know, I know because I'm learning German right now.
I know that is German, ain't it? Oh my goodness. Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Y'all, don't worry. I don't know if any of y'all know Dutch. I thought Deutsch. Deutsch. It sounded right. It sounded right. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm whatever. Now I gotta go look it up. So I'm like Dutch, Deutsch, Deutsch, Dutch, Deutsch,
Yeah, I'm not
Dutchland.
sure what it is in Dutch though. I don't know. I don't know any Dutch at
But,
all.
but what country is that?
Dutch? Holland.
Holland.
Yeah.
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 And they
But
wear
the
the little
Germans
boots.
say
They have the
Deutsch
little
for
wood shoes. They wear the wood shoes, right?
yeah, exactly. And the windmills and the tulips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. I don't know. I had to go look it up. I don't know.
The Germans, they call Germany Deutschland. That's how they say Germany in German.
Oh yeah, they
So,
do.
yeah.
They do. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you learned something new today, so that's great.
I know everybody else is gonna be watching this from around the world somewhere, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, naive American." Please forgive me.
No problem.
So, my next question, oh, John Boltman, he's watching. He's saying, they can all speak 4 languages and they smoke marijuana. Oh, from people from Dutch, from
Oh my
Holland.
goodness.
People from Holland.
Yeah.
Can your husband speak 4 languages? Can we confirm?
Well, he's Dutch, but he's definitely not for smoking marijuana. Actually, that's being legalized in Canada, like this coming month.
Wow.
That's
Can
gonna
you
have a lot of
believe that?
repercussions. Sorry.
Can you believe that? Like the times are changing so fast. I feel so old. And, like I still feel like when I see people smoking. Like I went down to Florida. I did go to Florida. There's people just smoking on the beach like it was nothing. I'm just like, aren't y'all scared? They're like, oh no, like you can have 2 grams and it's legal. I'm like, I'd be scared. Like, I don't want to get in trouble being next to you.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna have a lot of repercussions, and we'll see how that happens. But
We'll see. So, do you Google yourself?
yeah, I think I've done it 5 times. maybe, and then my Facebook comes up and my Twitter, and that's about it. Like, I don't do it too much. Yeah, no, for me, I guess that maybe when I'm more successful, more well known, I might do it more. But right now, I know that I don't really need that affirmation, that outside affirmation, or in other ways, people trolling you and just saying mean things about you. I don't really need that in my life. I've got really good friends and good family and readers who I meet at book signings. They tell me that their my book touched them, or it was a good read. So that's kind of all I need, really. And for me, just to focus on the writing itself is super important. So no, I don't really do it too much. I don't know. Should I? Do you?
Ah, sometimes, a lot of
Sometimes.
times, twice a day. I have to Google myself to see how my numbers are looking.
Exactly. No, it's true though, right? You do need to look at it a little bit, but yeah.
I don't do it as often as I say I do. Probably like once in a blue moon. Just to check. I usually just check where my rankings are, if I did use my name, and how it's doing out there, just to see, make sure
Yeah.
my SEO is on point. That's about it.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't like I hate the sound of my voice, and I hate the way I look on camera, so I don't even rewatch my videos unless
Do you?
I'm getting ready. Yeah, I send them to be edited,
It's
and
funny
then
though because our voices sound different than the way we hear them, right? When we talk, we hear our voice a certain way, and then we hear it on a video, and we're like, oh, that's just strange, it's
for
weird.
real,
And then we think
for
people think
real.
it's weird, but it's really not.
I think it's weird because I found that when I'm rewatching my videos, I'm like 10 octaves higher, and then I have the weirdest laugh, and then I do weird stuff, and there's like all these little stuff that I do, and when I'm on camera, I don't even think I'm doing it, but it's happening when I rewatch the video.
Well, just think of it this weird. I don't think this way. There is no person on this earth that is not weird in some way or another. I mean, truly, right? We're all unique in our own ways, our mannerisms, our personalities. So everybody's weird in some way, I think. I
Yep.
know I'm weird, just a different weird from the next person beside me.
So what are you expecting your readers to learn from your material overall? Because I know you have the
Overall,
because you're starting with this Canadian series, right?
yeah,
So you have 13 to go. I mean, 12 to go. So what
yeah.
overall do you want your
So
readers to gain?
overall, as I said, this is more, I want people, it's important for people to know history. Not so much dates and things, but why things happen the way they happen, because that's the only way that society is going to improve or overcome is the mistakes that they've made in the past. So I really want people to have a better grasp on their history and what happened in the past. But also, as I said, I focus more on the individual characters within the books, not so much the grand scheme of history in the books.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of include a theme or a message that I weave through the story, and I want people to be touched by that. So in this book, Redeemed from the Ashes, it's basically redemption. Can you redeem yourself from a messy past, from broken relationships, and can you rise from that with fresh new beginnings? And so hopefully when my readers read the story and empathize with the main character and see maybe a piece of themselves in the main character and then see her overcome the things, the obstacles, and the brokenness that she has to overcome, that they can see that and hold on to that in their own lives and say, I can overcome, or I can be redeemed, or I can redeem my past with a new beginning or a new future. So in
Right.
this book, that's kind of the theme that I'm going for. My second book has more to do with what is the treasure of your heart. Where do you put your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations in? Is it something like money or prestige, or is it family and friends and a good life? So these are kind of the messages, although I want the story to be entertaining, and I do focus on that as well. I want them to come away with something more than just pure fluff or entertainment, something that they can remember, something that might encourage them or help them in their lives.
Right, right, right. Those are really powerful messages there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it's messages that people need to hear more in general, and sometimes we don't hear it on social media or with friends, right? So, I mean, the power of the written word is tremendous. So if I can write material that's going to help in that way, then why not, right?
right, right. So we're coming up on the end here pretty fast, and I have one last question for you, and then after that, I'm gonna wrap up and let them tell you. You'll tell them where they can connect with you and such. But my last question for this interview is, as you know, an author who is doing pretty well, what's some advice that you can give for aspiring writers, and what kind of common traps can they miss? I mean, can you, tell them to overcome?
Yeah. Number one, one thing that I get a lot from different friends is how do you write a first draft, or how do you finish a first draft? I would say do not be a perfectionist. Don't go back and read it and fix it. Just keep writing until the thing is done. Because if you go back and then you're like, oh, no, this doesn't work, or I need to change the scene, you're never going to finish your book. And actually, that's the biggest, hardest part of writing, is just finishing a book, if that's what you're wanting to write. So finish your book. Don't be a perfectionist. There's going to be mistakes. It's probably going to be like garbage when you read it the next time, but that's okay, because a big part of writing a book is editing the book, going back, rewriting it, looking at it. I mean, the first book I've edited about 7-8 times. I had to reread through the whole thing and fix things. So expect that. So I'd say number one, just finish the first draft and don't be a perfectionist with that. Second, know what you want, because after you write your book, you're going to be, well, do I do traditional publishing, self-publishing, hybrid publishing? Just know what kind of a lifestyle you want. Traditional publishing, a lot of it is just writing the book, but kind of letting the company figure out title and cover, and giving them more power over that. But if you want to do self-publishing and you want to have all the power, then that's the route to go. So just kind of look at your pros and cons for that. Third, marketing. Have a online presence. One thing that I've read and that I've kind of been trying to incorporate is talk about your book even before it comes out. Start the buzz before it comes out, because then when it comes out, people are expecting it, and you can gain more of a following that way. So yeah, and really, as I did for a whole year, I was looking at marketing, how to market. Take the time to learn how to market yourself, your book, because that's traditional publishing or self-publishing. It is
Right.
So learning that. Yeah, those are the 3 big ones, I'd say. Don't be afraid to get out there. If you want to be in a bookstore, just give them a call and see what they say, and have a plan. And yeah, I think that's about it. But those, I would say, were the 4 big ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesomeness. So yeah, as everybody knows, I always post the buy link, and I post all the social media pages on the post. But Leah, can you go ahead and tell them how they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So my website is leahlindeman.com. Super simple. And then on Facebook, it's facebook.com/ it's Leah T. Lind, so LeahTlind. And for Twitter, it's the same thing as Leah T. Lind. That's my handle. And on Instagram, it's Leah T. Lind. So everything is the same.
Nice.
That's where you can reach me.
Good. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming and watching the show today and getting to know Leah Lindeman. Make sure that if you are just catching the show, you hashtag replay and let us know that you are watching the replay. If you guys have questions, go ahead and leave them on the post. We always monitor the post. So, if you have questions for the author or I, just leave them there. And if you guys are interested in, applying to get on the show with us, you can apply at marketingandcoffee.com. Choose an available time for us to conduct your live interview here on Facebook, or you can, we can do it as a written interview. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. And we also provide a list of interview questions. So for this time, we winged it. But and also lastly, if you guys are looking to sponsor somebody, the show would love to have some sponsors participating in it. So let us know if you're interested in that as well. Leah, I thank you so much for coming on with me, and you're such an inspirational person to know, and yeah, I learned a lot today.
Well, thanks for having me. You're such an amazing person yourself, doing this show, and you were super great.
Yeah. So next time is not Deutsch, it's Dutch, and Dutch is in Holland. Okay, guys. Hashtag support your author by leaving reviews. You can visit this author's book at the link above. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to receive our notifications.